This is Creepy and Geeky. Welcome to Creepy and Geeky. I'm your host, Robert, and on today's episode, in celebration of Black History Month, I'm talking to Donna about the horror comedy, The Blackening. But first, Donna and I are talking about the stuff we got into this last week. How's it going, Donna?
Hey, Robert, it's going good. Do you really think people can handle that much of Donna, like a
I
back-to-back
think they
the end?
can and they will. And if they don't want to, they can suck it because that's what they're getting. They're getting a whole lot of Donna today.
Oh my gosh, too much Donna for one person. Oh my God.
I know. I was gonna say
Um,
I said your name 3 times in that opening. I was like, I don't know. That's a lot of Donna.
it's a lot of Donna. I'm a
That's a
whole
lot of
lot of
Donna.
woman, so y'all are just gonna have to deal. I am doing great. I will tell you in this dystopian nightmare that we're living in, I finally got to see another movie. This is three in a week,
That's
three in a row
insane for
for
you. That is
me.
so insane for you. That's like nothing to me. If I like
That's a
that's a
low
slow
week for
month.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's slow. That's slim pickings for you. But for me, it's like, what the hell is going on? Yeah, I went and saw The Monkey. Unfortunately, they didn't have a poster. I love taking pictures of the movie, the posters of the movies that I just seen, and they didn't
Yeah.
have one up, and I was pissed. But I saw The Monkey. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
That is the
Top
most fun
top
I've
horror
had
movie of the year so far is gonna
so
be kind of
far.
hard to beat. Kind of gonna be hard to beat for me because it just lands everything like the horror, the super gory horror, and the comedy, and the really like pitch blackness of it. It just like it just works so well for me. I love that, just like that absurd, just like crazy black comedy like
The
that.
way I described it to my son, because only my husband and I wanted to go see it, which is why I went and actually saw a movie for once. I
Right,
didn't have to
right.
wait on 5 people. I said, "It is a ballet of bloodiness," and he was like, "Huh?" And I was like, "Sir." It's so
It's you
Looney
know what it
Tunes grossness.
Yeah, you know what it reminded me of too, though? It reminded me of, in a way, not like in a huge way, but in
Mhm.
a way, the Final Destination series, because you never
Oh, yeah,
knew how the death was going to happen, and so that was what made it fun and interesting in a way. Um,
absolutely.
as especially one in particular, but we can talk about that offline.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to spoil anything. I really
No.
want people to go and see this because it's really a lot of fun. If you have any interest in seeing it, please go see it in the theater, and especially stay until after the credits. There's not an end credits scene that relates to the movie. There's something that you do want to
Something
see
else. Yeah.
afterward, though.
It was, a delight, as I've said numerous times to other people and probably to you, Theo James being in it in a dual role was not not hurting. I was not hurting for it, but he actually hit both he and the younger, I think Christian Convery, played the younger twins. They both did a great job of
Yeah,
playing
yeah.
2 different people.
No, everybody is phenomenal in this
Oh,
movie. Like everybody's so good. We were just talking about this. Tatiana Maslany is in it, plays their mom. Oh
yeah.
man, she's in it quite a bit, but she's also underused in it. And I'm just like, it kind of reminds me of his last movie in Long Legs, where it was like, but at least with Long Legs, I didn't even realize it was Alicia Witt
Mhm.
until the end, and I was like, oh my god.
Right.
And so Alicia Witt turned in like a phenomenal performance in Long Legs. And so he's really good at like really getting these mother figures um in these ironic, since his father is known for, playing a deranged version of his own mother. Um So if anybody doesn't know, the director Osgood Perkins, his father is Anthony Perkins, who played Norman Bates in the original Psycho.
Yeah,
So
it's, you guys have got to please go see this movie. I cannot tell you, you'll laugh, your mouth will be on the
oh
floor,
my
like, my
God.
jaw was on
Yeah.
the floor.
You'll be
so
laughing
many
both
times.
just from the absurdity, and sometimes you'll be laughing from the most uncomfortable, like the most uncomfortable reasons ever. And it's just like, and there's just like, and the comedy is so well balanced. Like this is the interesting thing too, because I've only seen Long Legs and
Mhm.
the Black Coat's Daughter of his movies.
Yeah, I saw The Black Coat's
Um,
Daughter.
yeah, and this movie is in a totally different tone than any of those. Uh, those other two movies are a lot more serious. This one is not serious at all. Yeah, you would definitely be laughing and cringing and just yeah, it's a lot.
And I,
So,
I think that's one of the things I do love about it because
oh yeah,
life in itself is absurd,
that's the point of the movie.
and I love the whole commentary of dealing with literal generational
Yeah.
curses. Just, it's hard, but comedy is hard, and horror comedy is hard, and
Oh,
he
it's
managed
so hard,
to
and he
kind of
managed to
pull
do it. Yeah.
he pulled it off brilliantly and still having that underlying theme of what do we do with trauma? What do we do with guilt? What
Right.
do we do? And then, throwing the sibling thing, which I don't understand that, but
Yeah,
'cause I
yeah.
don't have any siblings, but I can understand that there is a sibling issue. There's a family dynamic that is an
Right.
issue. Um, just those things in general, I wanna go see it again. I'll be
Oh, I
honest
know.
with
Me too.
like, I
It's
can't wait to own this
this is
one.
definitely oh yeah, this is definitely going to be a must buy. So,
Now, I do wanna ask, when you went to the theater, did you have any of the monkey popcorn
oh yeah,
buckets?
they had them there. I would thought about buying one, but then I thought better of it because I
Oh,
didn't think I wanted one of those sitting in my house. Although I
I
did
might I
tell
might have to try to get one through you guys because I kinda want one now. It's hideous.
it
That thing is
looks
hideous.
exactly like the one. I mean, it obviously doesn't have the real hair like the one in the movie
Right,
does,
oh,
but and
yeah.
it's not as big, but it's just
It's
yeah.
creepy, though.
Oh,
It's
it's
a
creepy.
creepy ass.
It's very, very lifelike or like life. To the you'll get that if you watch the movie, people. Um, so yeah, so if yeah, I thought about getting one and just placing it around the house just to mess with people.
Oh my gosh. That's exactly what I would do. I would
I
totally
know.
do that to my husband. That's my favorite thing to do right now. It's ridiculous. So I might be hitting you up after
There you
this.
go.
I
There you
don't
go.
know. So, I only have about 3 trailers. Not too much was going on this week.
Yeah, I only
So,
have one trailer, so why
you
don't
wanna
you go
start with
ahead?
your one trailer just in case that's the same one that I have?
Sure, why not? So yeah, so my one and only trailer this week is a movie called Freaky Tales.
Yep, got that on my list. That's
Which
good.
this one looks really, really interesting. It's not horror, but it's more like it feels more like a crime, like a like it's kind of hard. It's like a weird crime comedy
Action,
action.
anthology.
Yeah, it's an anthology. But I think it's done by one filmmaker. So it'll be like at least the consistency will be there. Similar to like something like Trick or Treat.
Mhm.
Let's see. This is the overview. An NBA star, a corrupt cop, a female rap duo, teenage punks, neo Nazis, and a debt collector embark on a collision course in 1987 Oakland, California.
I will say this trailer, I love the '80s aesthetic that they have. It looks like they
Yes.
they have it done correctly. Everything looks kinda grungy, nothing looks, super neon.
Yes.
That thing that we always complain about when they show
Yeah, yeah,
people in
yeah.
the '80s, a lot of wood wall paneling in certain, places in the house, but it
Right.
looks like a lot of fun. I
Yeah.
think this is gonna be a fun ride
Oh
when it does
yeah.
come out.
Yeah, definitely. This one is directed by Ryan Fleck and Anna Boden, who previously directed the first Captain Marvel movie for the MCU. Um, and it stars Pedro Pascal, Ben Mendelsohn, Jay Ellis, Normani, um, Angus Cloud, again in a role previous to his death,
Mhm.
and um, and Tom Hanks, which was an odd. thing to find out in the credits of that because he's not in the trailer. So I'm glad they didn't put him in the trailer. It'll be like just like a nice little surprise.
Yeah, from what
Um,
I understand, I think he is the person that's running the video store, so maybe
yes, he's a
he's the
video store
person that's
employee. Yeah,
connect all of the stories, who knows?
that would be
Um,
awesome. Yeah,
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 especially for us former video store clerks, that would be a really
exactly.
neat thing. But yeah,
Yes.
that
Oh yeah.
looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it it looks like a lot of fun. I'll definitely make sure to put the link to the trailer in the show notes because it'll be yeah. It's I saw it. I was like, oh, what's this new Pedro Pascal movie? And I was like, holy shit, this looks fucking awesome. So yeah. All right. So what is your next trailer?
So the only trailer I have, it's really more of a teaser, but it is the new horror movie that the it's it Philippou brothers? I can never
Oh
say their name.
yes,
They did talk to me, and so they have a
right.
new horror film called Bring Her Back.
Yes.
And once again, it looks like it's dealing with occultish things. It has a
Right.
brother and sister who are trying to use a ritual to bring back their, I believe it's their foster mother. And from
Mm,
the trailer, it looks like things definitely don't go the way that they hope it will.
yeah.
Um, and it's real short, but I've been a fan of theirs ever since, it took me a long time to get on the Talk to Me trolley. So now that I've watched it and poured over it, that movie hit me in a way that I didn't expect because it, really did deal
Yeah.
with grief and trying to get over grief and missing the person. And I didn't expect that horror movie to hit me the way it did. And so now with this new one, I'm also like super excited to see what they're going to do next and how this is going to play out.
Right. Yeah, because I know they have a Talk to Me 2 coming.
Mhm.
And they so this I think they had planned to do another movie in between, and this I think is the one. And yeah, it says the overview is a brother and sister witness a terrifying ritual at the secluded home of their new foster mother. So yeah, looks interesting. Yeah, I do remember seeing that trailer um before the monkey.
We
So
didn't get any good trailers at the beginning. I don't even remember. I mean, that's how boring I was like, "What?
yeah.
This is the only trailer?" And I don't even remember what it was. That's how bad it was.
Well, you may not get any trailers, but you also don't get the every time you go to the movie theater, you don't have to see Nicole Kidman tell you about how cool movies are.
Oh, jeez.
That still plays, and they tried to change it up, and they're like, "Look, we're going to try a couple of different versions of it," and it's like, "Yeah, but then it always defaults back to the like the same one or something like that," and it's just like the same three rotating through, and it's like, "Okay, I've seen all these. Give me something different."
Yeah, I think our trailer, the only I know what it was. It was, Mickey 17, which looks great,
Oh yeah, yeah,
but I've seen
yeah.
that trailer every time I've gone to the movies
Yeah.
so far,
No, that movie
and
does look interesting. I'm not a huge Robert Pattinson fan, like in general. Like I can kind of give or take him depending on the movie.
right.
But yeah, this one looks interesting. So,
Yeah, and I think the only other trailer we had there was, our local theater has been playing a lot of retro movies, so they're playing Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me, so they already
oh,
played Blue
nice.
Velvet, so yeah,
That's
that's the
cool.
next trailer. That was it, and I was like, "That's all? That's the only trailer?" But that's okay. So what do you have next?
I don't have any other trailers, but I do want to mention that I am on a new episode of the Podcast 616, which is a MCU podcast done by my friends Ashley Thomas and Hugh McStay, and they have me over once in a while to talk about whatever is out and about. And this episode, we're talking about the new Captain America: Brave New World.
Oh,
So
good. Can't wait to hear that.
there's just me and Hugh that time, but we had a lot of fun talking about that, and we talk a little bit about Fantastic Four first steps as well, a little bit about the trailer and stuff. So yeah, it's a good fun time. Go check it out. And I'm also on a new episode of Horrific Heroes that I co-host with Steve Emerson over on the Voices from the Mausoleum YouTube channel. Um, I'll have links for both of those. But yeah, we talk on Horrific Heroes. We talk about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, because we're
Ah,
kind of going backwards. We
yeah.
previously talked about Agatha all along. Now we're talking about now we just talked about Multiverse of Madness, and then we're going to be doing a short 3 episode series on WandaVision. So we're kind of going backwards in the timeline. Weirdly, I don't. It just kind of happened that way. But yeah, it was a lot of fun talking about that, and I've now talked about Multiverse of Madness 3 times, twice on my own podcast and once over there. So, if
That's
anybody
such a
wants to,
fun movie. I love
oh,
that one
God, I
so
love it.
much.
Sam Raimi. I mean, come on, you get me talking about Sam Raimi, in a MCU / horror movie.
I
Come on, it's
know.
like it's everything rolled into one. It's the creepy and the geeky combined.
Combined. Could not be more perfect for you.
Right, and that's what kind of what horrific heroes is about in a way too, is about looking at science fiction, superheroes, those kind of movies that have a horror lens on them as well, so kind of that mashing up of things. So we've talked about like Psycho Gorman and Return to
Mhm.
Oz, and like I said, we talked about Agatha all along. So yeah, no, it's a fun time over there. Make sure you go check it out. What else you got for me?
The last trailer that I do have is for a new summer camp slasher film called Marshmallow.
Oh, I haven't heard of this
And
one.
this is kind of a unique, it's almost formulaic, but then kind of unique because in this one, instead of the slasher being after the counselors, they have one particular camper that is the main focus of this slasher. Um, it's gonna be coming out April 11th, and there is a trailer out, so you definitely wanna go and check it out. It kind of showcases all the fears of going to camp for the first time and, having, worries about fitting in, but then now you have to incorporate a slasher coming after you as a child. So,
All right.
Marshmallow is the name of that one. Definitely go check out that trailer. April will be here before we know it, so you definitely
Yeah.
wanna see if it's something you might be interested in. I'm all in because I definitely love the whole camp slasher
Oh yeah.
vibe. That's
Yeah,
that's
when it's
that's just
done
my thing.
right,
Yeah.
it's definitely great. All right, I'll definitely check that out. I hadn't even heard about it. Cool, cool. I love it. All right. Well, that's all I have for today. Before we move on to our talk about the blackening, what do you got going on your show this week?
So since I'm closing out the Black History horror series of films that I did, I actually have one this time because last week I was in up in the air. I didn't know what
Yeah, and then you
I
ended up going
recorded.
with Barbarian.
Yeah, I recorded 2 separate ones, and I wasn't sure which one I wanted to do, and I didn't wanna edit both because I just didn't feel like doing it. But this is,
Lazy.
I fully own up to that. I have other things going on. I was going to
Right.
movies, Robert.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I guess I'll give you a pass on that.
I don't give a fuck if you give me a pass or not. So this week, to close it out, I am talking about, Abby, which is a 1974
Mm,
flick that people have dubbed The Black Exorcist, but it's a little bit more
right,
than that. There are some similarities, and I'll get into that when you hear it. But this movie, it's got a weird vibe to it. I absolutely love it, and more people need to know about Abby and or at least talk about it. I think it's a really good black exploitation film. Not a big fan of possession films, but this
right.
one I give a little bit more love and leniency to, probably because there are black
All
people in it. No, kidding, just kidding. But it also has William Marshall, which if y'all don't like William Marshall and you don't fuck with Blackula, just forget it.
right.
Just that's all I can tell you. But Abby is up on the menu for the closing of
Cool.
this Black History
Yeah,
Month.
that's one of the I got derailed from my black exploitation watch
What?
that I've been doing. I just between having to watch things for the podcast and
Mhm.
everything else, it just kind of got derailed from it. But I'll be back on it here in just a bit. But Abby has been on my list. Actually, I think you briefly mentioned it or talked about
Mhm.
it at some point on your podcast, or maybe you just suggested it to me personally.
Yeah.
And so it's been on my watch list for a while now, and so I'm, but I made sure to put it on my list for this year to watch, and so it should be coming up fairly soon. I know I'm coming up on the Pam Grier era, so that's gonna um, be fun. Let's see. Yeah, so the last one I watched was Shaft in Africa. So, which I
God, I don't
actually
even remember that one, and I know I watched that as a kid, but I
I
could not
w-
tell you what happened.
I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. So I've got one, two, four, eight, 10, I got 10 movies before I get to Abby. So, so I got a lot because I've got what like three Pam Grier movies in there,
Hmm.
plus some other stuff. So, yeah, but yeah, definitely get into it. I watched what 11 of these movies so far.
Jeez.
Yeah, the only one I haven't been able to watch was Hitman, and that was because it wasn't available anywhere. Bernie Casey one, which
Mhm.
also has Pam Grier in it, which I didn't know. But yeah, it's not available anywhere streaming, so I wasn't able to watch that one quite yet. So hopefully it'll pop up on streaming somewhere, and I can fill in that hole. So, but yeah. But that's all I got for this week. Thank you for coming on again, and we'll go ahead and head into our talk about the blackening right after the break. All right. On today's final episode in this Black History Month series, we're talking about the horror comedy The Blackening. Joining me for this is my great friend Donna, who you all should know by now from her own podcast, Donna Tha Dead. Welcome back to the show, Donna.
Hey, Robert. It is my pleasure to come back and do this one with you. I love this
Yeah,
movie.
this is such a fun movie. I think this is only the first time I've watched it since I saw it in the theater. But it was such a fun watch both times. Like in the theater it was hilarious, but even watching it this second time was just like, oh my god, like I'd like forgotten so much about it and just really really enjoyed it the second time. It is, and it's so funny too when going through these movies. You know, throughout this whole series and talking about these, each one of these movies has had, you know, especially like maybe not so much Nope because you could like there's a degree of Nope that you could tell that story with a white cast.
Mhm.
But I feel like the other movies definitely could not be told as well. And I don't think I would argue that even Nope, you can't tell as well with a white cast. And so but The Blackening is fully one of those movies that you can't tell at all without a black cast because it is fully about the black experience and like and so much so that even the characters themselves are questioning each other about their blackness. So it's so funny too. And like don't get me wrong, like white people don't talk to each other about their whiteness. We all just know we're white. So there's never any moment where we have to come up with our own cred about of being white. so, so watching this movie was hilarious just because you're just like, wow, okay.
Yeah, there's a
So
whole layer underneath that cover that you have no
yeah,
idea
no,
until you watch this movie.
and that's what's really great about watching this movie is as much as it's funny and everything too, like there's so much that goes into just this whole idea of blackness.
The
And
whole cultural identity and
yeah,
stereotypes of Blackness and the levels of Blackness, you really writing the story, them making this movie, it hit on every beat that you could possibly think of as an African American person. It's
yeah,
just it's brilliant, it's funny, it has clearly they have a love of horror movies because there's so much in here
yes,
that's ingrained in watching a horror films all the time.
right,
Um, and then having it set at Juneteenth was just
yes,
the chef's
yeah,
kiss because we never had a Juneteenth horror movie. Why would we? Why would we make a
right, right, yeah,
um, so, it's definitely one that's, in rotation ever since it's been out. This is a must watch on Juneteenth. If you do nothing else, there are several things that there are 2 days I do not work. I do not work on my birthday, and I do not work on Juneteenth. So, this has now become my Juneteenth ritual now. I
That's
have to
so
watch this
funny.
movie. Yeah, I don't. I refuse to do it. Um,
There you go.
so, I can just tell you that this film stemming from that short, that Comedy Central
Yes.
played the short, I didn't know if it would work as a full-length movie, and it totally works as a full-length movie.
And yeah, and I'll say this works as a true horror comedy. Horror comedy is a hard,
Mhm,
fine line thing to make work. And because you have to not go one way or the other. And they somehow manage that even when they're getting a little too silly, they manage to pull it right back.
mhm,
And even with the horror, they get a little horror and then they pull it right back. They kind of undercut each other with both things, and it just works so perfectly. And it's so hard to do because there are moments where it starts getting into a little too much parody, and then they pull it back, and it's like, oh my God, they knew exactly how to work it just right.
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
and I was really like, that was the main thing for me, was when watching this, like, this truly works as a slasher film. You took out the horror or the comedy out of it, it would still work as a horror movie. And the same with, making it a comedy bit, too, because obviously I watched the short as well. And because I think you sent me the short,
I
because
did.
because we talked about this like before it came out. Like I said, I think I seen the trailer and we talked about it, and you're like,
And I
oh, it's
asked if
based
you
on
had
the
seen
thing.
the
Yeah.
short. Yeah.
And then you sent me the short and I was like, no, I hadn't seen this. And then yeah, and then I love that. But yeah, definitely the movie's actually better than the short. The short does a good job at doing what it's doing, but the short is just about that small segment of them in the basement playing the game. And like, I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's just them trying to prove who's blacker, or
Right.
but trying to push off who's blacker, because they're like, no, you're the blackest. you know I can prove I'm not black, I'm half white, or I'm married to a white woman. It's a um but yeah, no, that's what it just, and the fact that they're making a sequel is just great. Like,
The fact that they're making the sequel, I cannot wait
yeah.
to see where this location is going to be and what is going to
Yeah.
transpire. But what's brilliant about this is it works for white people, yes,
Hmm.
but it works so much for Black folk because there are things in this film that we rarely see people doing, like, the communication without talking. We do this all the time.
It's so funny.
It's just a thing, and it's gotten to the point now, my husband is Caucasian, he knows that if I give him a certain look, he's like, "Oh, shit," and then we gotta go or whatever it is,
Right.
he just knows
He's
by the
starting
look
to
on my
pick up
face.
on
We've been married
the
30
black
years.
telepathy.
He's got it. So it's ingrained in us that we can do these things, and I thought, "Oh my god, they are giving them the peek behind the curtain of what we do," and it makes perfect sense. I love everything about this movie, the beginning where they have the 2 big name stars, and then they have to answer the question, who are the first Black people to survive, and I think he
Yeah.
says Jada Pinkett Smith and Omar Epps,
Omar
and she's
Epps,
like,
yeah.
"They're the first ones to die. What are you talking about?" It's like the studio couldn't afford them, and then, it's like, "Duh, this is
Yeah.
what's gonna happen to you in, like, 5 minutes." It's brilliant, them calling the board game, "What kind of Jim Crow Monopoly is this?" It's just when I saw that, I was like, "Oh, this is terrible." But then
Yeah.
when they started making fun of it, I couldn't stop laughing at it. It was just
Yeah.
and that's one of those things that I really enjoy about this movie as Black people and people in general, but more so Black people. Humor is a defense mechanism. So
Yes, yeah.
I don't give a crap how shitty it is. I'm gonna find a joke in there somewhere because
Yeah.
that's how I deal with things.
Right.
Anybody's followed me on Instagram or any of my social media or listen to my pod, that's just how I am. I have to make fun of how absurd life is.
Yeah.
And it helps, the humor, deflecting helps. Um, and I love that each of these characters have their own strengths. They have their own weaknesses
Oh
too.
yeah. Oh yeah.
But it's such a clever tale, and not to spoil it, well, we always give spoilers.
Yeah,
Excuse me. We always give spoilers here. To have all of them survive, because there was no way in hell any of these people were gonna die. That just
yeah.
wasn't gonna happen. Um,
Well, and that is funny too, because I mean, like I said, spoilers and everything. The main cast that is in this, every one of them survive,
everyone
which is
is
odd. It's usually like only one survives and everything, but like some of them are very much hurt, but they still survived. And so that is, I think that is a funny commentary as well about horror movies. Because the 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 stereotype, and it doesn't really hold true when you look at enough horror movies like
Mhm.
we do, you find that the black person in the cast isn't always the first, or one of the first to die. That they either will survive quite a bit or will even be one of the survivors totally.
Right.
But there's enough of it that did happen for a little while that that trope became a thing. But I think it's funny that they turn it completely on its head and they're like, well, nobody's gonna die. So which was hilarious. So
I think that that's one of the things that stands out about this film, the whole idea of Black representation and them being so many, different facets of Blackness,
yes.
and then you trying to I'll be the first one to say it. When I went to school, when I was in high school and middle school, I loved MTV. I was an MTV kid. This is what I grew up on. And my friends who didn't really care for MTV, they would sometimes pick on me and say, "Oh, you're just trying to be white." How the fuck can I do that? How can how could
Yeah,
I
yeah.
ever be white? So I love the fact that they dig at each other. These characters,
Right.
they've gone to college. They clearly love each other. It's like a,
Yes.
little surrogate family of their own. And of course, they have somebody who's biracial and they tease her all the time about being white.
Yeah.
She walks in and there's a picture of a zebra, and the guy says, "Oh, this is your family pictures on the
Yeah.
wall." Well, one of the characters is even married to a white woman. And so it's like, you know, this is stuff that only family can do. You can
Right.
only kid like this when it's somebody that you truly love and you truly have
Absolutely. Yeah.
affection with. I would never in a million years say something like that to somebody who I have no kind of connection to, because that would be totally offensive. But
Right.
if my girlfriends say stuff like that to me, it's like it's hilarious because
Right.
I know they don't, there's no malice behind it. It's just
Exactly.
that's how we do each other.
Yeah.
Um, but
It's like the friendship you and I have, we've
yeah,
we've we've reached, I feel like, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like we've reached that level where you and I are comfortable with each other, that we can send each other funny things like that are like, would be offensive in other places, but like we understand that
we get each
we
other.
have no
Yeah,
malice behind it.
exactly.
So
There's an understanding there. Like you fully know if there was something that would truly offend me that you would not send me, and vice
yeah,
versa.
absolutely. Yeah.
So this is what I love about this film, that we have all of these different friends that come together, and then we have a person that comes in there that none of them remember. They
Right.
don't know who this guy is. He's just invited to the weekend excursion, and then it dawns on them, "Oh yeah, I went to school with you." Still have no clue of who this guy
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Clifton was such an odd character amongst
Yes.
all of these friends. He was just, he was stammering. He had the little side lip talking thing that he was
Yeah.
doing. He had an Android phone, and everybody was like, "I told you we don't do that here. We don't. Nobody supports
So
Android in
stupid.
this place."
As an Android user, I'm with
I
Clifton.
know,
It is the superior operating system.
but it worked. I'm gonna go over that.
Uh-huh. I know, because you're an iPhone user.
I love you, buddy. I will just say that with my whole chest. I love you. Moving on from that
Oh
point,
man.
I love how we have all of these different people. King clearly was a thug. Lisa is now a lawyer, or,
Yeah.
in a law firm, I guess.
Yeah.
And then
She
she
says
has,
she's an attorney later on. Yeah.
yeah, and then she's got her gay best friend, who I cannot remember his name right now.
Dwayne.
Thank you. Dwayne is one of the
Yeah.
writers of this,
He's
and
one of the writers,
oh
yeah.
my god, I love this character. We get to see a gay black man, and he is just as brave as everybody else. He does use the gay the gay stereotype when they try to figure out who's the blackest, and he's like, "Oh, no, I'm gay." And they're like, "Oh, you always fall back on that." And he's like, "Oh, no, my family says gayness is just
N It's
whiteness
just
wrapped up
whiteness
in a bunch of
disguised.
dicks."
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. That's right.
And I was like, "Huh?"
Oh my
So,
god.
it's great. We get to see a queer black character, which is not something we see often in horror movies. We get
Right,
to see
yeah.
him, defend Lisa, who he's that's his best friend, and
Well, not just that, but they also all accept him. Like,
they
and that's the
do.
thing
There's
too.
no question
Even the
about it.
guys in the group are just like, you know what? He's part of our friend group.
Yeah.
It's not there's no and the other two guys, like you said, one's a thug, one's a like a former thug.
He's an ex-thug, yes, his
He's
wife has
ex-thug.
reformed him.
Yes, his white wife
Right.
has has reformed him. And that was sort of. Um
Sorta,
as we
yeah.
find out. And then the other one's like a personal trainer, so he's all like heavily muscled up and everything like that. He's like a big dude and everything. So it's like these two kind of macho guys and everything like that. They're fully welcoming and accepting of Dwayne being in their group and having been in their group the whole time. And so I love that aspect because I know that you know as an outside
Typically, they would make
observer, black culture
right.
is not very welcoming of gay in the community.
Well,
So
especially on screen, on
yeah,
in movies, they're just they aren't, and I love the
and they're
fact, like
used a
you said,
lot.
it's
There's a lot of caricature normally in on film too when there are black characters that are gay.
mhm.
And so it's just yeah, it was nice seeing just a traditional like and especially I'm assuming I could be wrong, but I'm assuming the actor himself is gay.
He
Um,
is, yeah,
so so that part was great. So and he's one of the writers. So
right. And
but
that's what I mean with him, I assume clearly he is a lover of horror films because
yes.
they hit every trope and it all works out exactly
Yes.
correct. This film is like a little bit of Saw, it's like, um, gosh, it's a little bit of everything, every
Yeah.
slasher movie that you can think of, um, and it's interesting too because even though they're all vastly different, they all still have to work together and play upon each other's strengths. At one point, Allison, at the beginning of the film, she was talking about Krav Maga and how she was taking all of these martial arts
Yeah.
classes, and it's kind of funny. And then
I had
later on,
forgotten
she's
about
like,
that. Yeah.
yeah, and then later on, she's like literally killing one of the slashers
Yeah.
with her bare hands. I mean, she's high on Adderall, but
Yeah.
but she actually did accomplish, slaying this person. And it's
Well, and the women like it's the women who are the ones who end up like dispatching the
yeah,
dudes.
the
So
women are just top tier, the
yeah.
best, like all of them. It is so funny. I think it was is it Shamika? I can't remember which one.
Shanika, yeah.
Shanika, it was in this water, and she's just like, "All right, well, I'm gonna swim across because they probably assuming we can't swim." And then King is like, "Well, they assume, right?" And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh my god!" And she's like, "Way to go and be a stereotype."
Yeah.
I couldn't. I'm telling you, every beat, I was just like dead. This is just perfection to me because
Yeah.
that is the stereotype.
No,
Um,
I know. Cause like from having watched Survivor, like over the years and everything like that too, because that would crop up every once in a while when there would be a black person in one of the teams. They'd be like, I can't swim. Like black people can't swim. And it was like I was like, wait, is that really a thing? But it happens so often on the show. I was like, wow, that is a thing. That's so funny.
Well,
And then
it's
yeah,
so
go ahead.
weird because when I grew up, my home had a pool, so I had to learn how to swim because if I wanted to be in the pool, I had to learn how to
Yeah,
swim. And also it stems from my mother wanting me to make certain that I survive. Because what if I go on a cruise ship? What if I go out on a boat on a harbor? Will I be able to,
right.
swim? So it's a survival thing for me. I just think it's hilarious that they pointed it out, and she's
Yes.
out there swimming, and then these arrows start coming at her, and she's turns around and, like, defiantly says, "No, no." Like, he's
Yeah.
gonna not shoot these arrows at her. Everybody has such great personalities in this movie. It's just
Yes.
it's hard to focus on one because I think I like all of them at it just equally. It's just
No, everybody's well defined. Everybody's got like their own great moments and character arcs and everything. Yeah, no, it's very much a very fun movie. And that's what I really enjoyed, and having rewatched it again was just like, and like I said, this one really, whereas I've said this with all the other movies, it's very much in the black experience and everything like that. This, like, I think whereas those are set in the black experiences and about the black experiences, this one's a commentary on black
Mhm.
experience and black culture and black life and stuff. So I really enjoyed it for that aspect of it, because it just makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah, because once again, comedy I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for the entire Black community, but comedy has always been one of those tools, just of resilience just to deal with what's going on, and the fact that they are so funny with each other throughout this whole film, at one point, I think, King was making, like, his Kool-Aid and
Yes.
oh my god, the
King's
sugar,
cool, yay.
yeah, the cool yay is the amount of sugar this
Oh
man
my
put
god.
in, and everybody
And
kept
it
telling
comes
him,
back
"You're gonna get
to,
a cramp,
yeah.
you're gonna get a cramp."
And he got a cramp later
He's
in
got a
the
cramp. The
right when he
funniest
didn't need it.
thing.
Yeah. So funny.
But,
Uh,
back to the horror lover,
yes.
Dwayne Perkins, I think is his last
Yes,
name.
Dwayne Perkins.
Um, right from the get-go in this film, we get them making fun of Friday the 13th when the 2, main characters at the beginning, when they're going into the game room, we get "We have to split up." Everybody's like, "Don't
Yes.
say the stupid shit that
Yeah.
horror people say," but they do, they have to split up. I think at one point, Namdi says something about, King being in the sunken place, It's
Yes.
just like
Yes.
all of these things, I I really enjoyed the fact that they had those subtle nods to all of the horror films.
Yeah.
It lets everybody in the audience know, yes, we know horror films too. We watch them. We do know what they're about. Um, there
No,
was one
but like
more.
that's the interesting thing though too, is black audiences are a huge consumers
Yes.
of horror movies. Like it's well known. And so like that's why I think it's great. Like I think it's interesting that people get like all like, oh my god, Jordan Peele's making a horror movie. Yeah,
Yeah.
he loves horror. Like black people love horror movies.
We
Like
wanna see somebody else get cut the fuck up and
yeah,
terrorized for once. This
yeah,
is my personal opinion. I would rather see somebody else get terrorized in a movie for a couple of hours so I can breathe easy for a couple of
yeah, exactly.
they even they make a great I was in love with it when I saw it, King, when they're done, killing one of the slashers, and he's like, "I'm feeling a little woozy here," and I was like,
Yes.
"Oh, yes, I love this."
Yes.
So every time I see that, I'm like, okay, this is truly a horror fan understanding what it is to be in a horror movie and then making it so funny and so subversive and
Yes.
for black audiences to really be like, this is exactly what I would do. This is exactly what I would they and I really like you said, the women were obviously the ones doing the most dispatching,
Yes.
very much so to the point where Lisa has a complete female rage moment where she's just bashing this slasher and,
Yeah.
having this whole monologue by why do black women always have to come and save everybody? She just kinda
Yeah.
goes off, and in that moment, I was like, I see you, girl. I understand I understand fully what you're talking about." It was a beautiful, beautiful moment. We all wish we could have that moment, and it was
Right.
it was something else, but it's so great. I love this film. Dietrich Bader was
Dietrich Bader
probably
is the
one
token
of
white
my
guy of the
yeah,
movie.
but he was so clever
Oh, he's
because he
so good, yeah.
what was his name? Officer White?
Officer Ranger White.
Ranger White?
Ranger White, because he wasn't an officer, he's a park ranger. Yeah.
That's right, he's a park ranger. His whole
He comes
his
off
whole
as racist in the beginning, and then he comes
right.
back and he's like, no, 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 wait, I know everything. Like, he's like, He's like, no, 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 I'm on your side. And
If
they're
you
like,
invited me
prove
to the
it.
cookout, I
I
would
would
accept
not
the
go.
invitation, but I would not go.
Yeah, because I know my whiteness would not be like good there. And it was like, wow, dude, like he's better than I would have been. I would have been like, if I would have been invited to the cookout, I would have gone. I would have just been like, yeah, heck yeah. Then
I
everybody
mean,
been
you
looking
could
at
be
me like,
invited to my cookout. You could totally
yeah,
come
there
to
you go.
mine. But but it's so funny that he was just honorable enough to
He
say, "Oh, no,
was.
no, no, but I wouldn't go because I
Yeah.
wouldn't wanna intrude on this black space."
Yes.
But I also do like the fact that when he says, "Okay, come along with me," they still go down to pick up their weapons because they're
Yeah.
not 100% sure of what's gonna
No, I
happen.
mean for sure. I mean 100%. Like that's the smart thing, and that's what makes this one fun too. Is that while they have to do certain things like splitting up and doing everything else like that, they're like, yeah, but let's try to do this in a smart way. Like let's, we're not going to totally trust this white guy just because he said all the right things.
Right.
We're still going to grab our weapons. So, which was great. But yeah, it's this movie. I mean, as a white person, I've thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I mean, this movie was like one of my favorites of that year. I own it on physical, and just it
Mhm.
was one of those movies that just was a lot of fun. And I'm glad we're finally getting to talk about it too, because it was one of those movies that I'd always wanted to talk about on the show but hadn't gotten a chance to yet. So
I
um,
know one thing that made me laugh when I saw this movie was when they first were in the game room and they started asking the questions about how many black people were on Friends,
yes,
and for some reason I immediately thought of you.
of course, of course, I'm the huge friend person.
I only
So
knew Aisha Tyler and Gabrielle Union. I did not know any of the other actors that they talked about
I
were on
could,
Friends because
yeah.
I
I
didn't
mean,
watch
to
it.
be fair, I couldn't remember. Those were the only two that I would have remembered too. And they started bringing up like Dark Ann Viv was on it, and I was like, oh yeah, she was on it.
I
Um, and yeah,
See,
some of
I
the
would have
other ones.
answered that correctly because I would have been like, "I've never seen Friends, so I wouldn't
Yeah,
know."
yeah, exactly.
But
That
I
was
did
so
know the
funny.
2 women. I did know Gabrielle Union, and I did remember Aisha Tyler, just for
Yeah,
some reason. My husband left that show. I can't watch it.
it's a white, it's a white people show. I get it. I get it. It's totally a white
It's not
person
for
show.
me. It's not
Yeah,
for
yeah,
me.
yeah. Did you watch Living Single, like they said in
Of
the
course
show?
I did. Of course I did.
I did not watch that show.
See?
The-
That's what I'm saying.
it just, from what I understand, Living Single was just black friends,
That's
So
exactly it, or Friends as Black as White Living Single.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
exactly what it is. Um, which is funny because my husband watched both of those, now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, he's
That's
seen both
funny.
shows.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a clever, cute show. But yeah, the questions had me, the second verse of "Lift Every Voice and Sing," I would have been
Yeah.
dead because we only know the first verse, we don't know the second one.
That's so funny.
I don't, I can promise you
Well,
right
I
now.
mean, he even said it in there, like they would have died if it hadn't been for
Yeah,
her,
if it
like
hadn't been
singing it.
Allison, I wouldn't
Yeah.
have I would have been
The
dead.
one
That would have
who's half white. That's what's even funnier.
But then again, this is her proving her
Her
blackness.
proving her blackness. Yeah, she's like, well, I'm half white, so I really got to step up and do like know all this stuff for
Yeah.
to prove my
There
blackness.
there are degrees of blackness. You would like to not think that there is, but there is,
Well, and that's
unfortunately.
what's even funnier too, because I have heard this. I'm again, I'm not black, so I have no idea. So I just hear it secondhand. But I have heard that, like, there is even that much that the blackness, even in skin tone, like there's discrimination within the culture amongst skin tone. Like the darker you are, the more black you are, the lighter skinned you are, like you're looked down on. And
So
so
there was a very terrible that's something that's just ingrained in people just from the upbringing and how
yeah.
it was in society. But there is a terrible thing that they used to do here in the South, um, where it was called the brown paper bag test. And if you put your
Mm,
hand in the brown paper bag, if your hand was lighter or the same shade, then you could go into the places. But if it was darker, you couldn't. So
wow.
this is that there's some internal things that are still going on. If you've never
Yeah.
seen, Spike Lee School Days, there's a lot of skin class differential things going
Interesting.
on in that film, and it's a great film to kinda showcase that, but,
Mm,
this film, it does a good job of pointing out those things, but also showing that at the end of the day, we're all black. It doesn't really
Yeah,
matter
exactly.
how you perceive this person, they're gonna be black regardless. So
Exactly.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. Dwayne was probably one of my favorite characters to watch because he was just so there was internal things going on between Lisa and Dwayne and Namdi because they dated in college, I think it was, and then he
Yeah.
kept cheating on her. So Dwayne, being her gay best friend, would always pick up the pieces, and then
Yeah.
now he finds out they're dating again. Um, and I can understand that. As a friend, you
No,
should be
yeah.
able to tell your best friend that you're dating someone that probably wasn't good for you back then, but if they've matured and it worked out, good for you. Um, so I once again love that dynamic of them being like family. That's just like, not
Right.
wanting to tell a sibling that you're back together with your ex. It's no
Right.
good. But it's such a refreshing movie to watch, even to when we get to the ending of this film and they're like, "Okay, so we need to call the cops." And everybody's kinda like, "Yeah, right.
Right.
I got dead white people everywhere. I'm gonna just bring in the cops. How are we gonna do this?" And I love how they kinda figure out, "Oh, well, we can just call the fire department because at least they'll come and they won't have guns."
Right.
And while I'm laughing at it, we're laughing at it as Black people because that's probably the
No.
safest bet. Just
Yeah.
call the fire department.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't really work for them in the end, we see, but
No,
but I'm assuming they'll all be back for the sequel. So,
I hope so. I hope we see all of them, and I hope we get the slashers that we had in this one. I love the twist with it and how it played out. I don't know the way it ended. It kind of seems like the one of the bad people were might come back.
yeah.
But I hope not. I hope we get something new and fresh and like really twist it up a lot more is what I'm
Yeah.
hoping.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is a, this is an interesting movie. It was like we said, it was co-written by what's his name? Dwayne Perkins. But also, it's interesting too because when it popped up who the director was on this, I was like, oh, that's interesting, because it's directed by Tim Story,
Mhm.
who is famously known for a lot of black films. He's been known for Barbershop, um, uh, uh, the most recent Shaft movie, and the Ride Along movies. But he's also known for, in comic book circles as the director of the two Fox Fantastic Four
Fantastic
movies.
Four. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where I recognized him from. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Um, but yeah, he's done a lot of other stuff. I didn't realize it wasn't until I was looking at this. I was like, oh, okay, he's done a lot of other more um stuff in black film, so I was glad to see that. So
Yeah, I really hope he comes back to direct the sequel because I think he
yeah,
did a great job of handling this. And this is
yeah,
such a fun
absolutely.
movie to showcase that, being Black isn't just one your Black identity isn't a monolith. It's like we can be so many different diverse things. So that is something that I love the message in this movie about that.
Mm,
Just you can be other things than what people perceive you to be. I think
right.
that's what's so fun about this movie. Um, and even when they were picking out the little game pieces and they were just
Right.
talking about each other, like, what about the pyramid? And he's like, well, you're from Africa, like you're
You're
literally an
literally
African.
from Africa. Yeah.
And I think Shanika, they gave her like a bottle and like, "You're
Yeah.
drunk."
Yeah.
It's like, once again, these are things you can only do with people that you consider family.
Right.
It's so funny. I never did get to see what Dwayne's totem was, though. They had everybody else's, but I don't think they ever showed his.
Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah.
It's probably a little Molly pill since he
Yeah.
likes Molly. His Molly drug scene was so funny. It was just
Yeah.
everybody needs somebody like him just to kind of get you in gear and then also kind of snap you out of whatever it is that you're going through. But everybody in this cast was top tier, even to the point where I think Namdi had to take off his shirt because Allison was bleeding and they needed to tie a tourniquet or
Yeah.
something. And he just rips his shirt
He just
off,
rips
he's
it off instead of
Superman.
just pulling
And
it
then they're
off.
like, damn.
Yeah.
These things really make this movie enjoyable through and through. It's
No,
just,
absolutely.
yeah, I cannot wait to see a sequel for this. I hope they make a franchise so that we can build upon this world and have, bring some different people that you want to kill off in the beginning. But it's
Yeah.
just, I don't know. I think it was one of the better movies that came out. What was it, 2023?
2023, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, it was interesting too. Speaking of the sequel, they said that uh Perkins had said that he has envisioned a franchise akin to a scary movie-esque series versus the Knives Out style with a new cast for each mystery.
I don't know how I feel about that, but it could work. If they
Yeah,
get the right people, it could work, and I
yeah,
would not be mad at that at all. I mean, that would be wonderful, especially being in different settings for different holidays. 'Cause I can only
yeah.
imagine they do a Kwanzaa one. Oh my god.
Oh my gosh. I didn't even think about that. That'd be hilarious. Oh my God. And you know what? Like I think that's what's great about it too. I think that you kind of need something like that just to like, kind of push that culture like aspect of it in a fun way. Because I mean, I don't think there's any Kwanzaa movies. Nothing like major anyway. So I'm sure there's something, some small movies or something like that that I'm not aware of. But yeah, no, that'd be very funny and interesting. So yeah, no, I'm excited to see where they go with any potential franchise. But yeah, this was so much fun. I remember Katrina and I went and watched this in the theater and just had a ball with it. Um, so yeah, revisiting it was a lot of fun again. And yeah, definitely going to be a rewatch again in the future for sure. But
Watch it every
yeah,
Juneteenth.
there you go. I was gonna say maybe I'll just make it a Juneteenth
Watch it every
edition as well.
June That's my platform, I'm sticking to it.
There you
Watch it
go.
every
No, I mean
Juneteenth.
it's a good idea. That's a perfect way to do it. All right. Well, do you have anything else you wanted to say about the movie before we move on?
No, I think the only thing I would love to say about it is, it's high time we had a Juneteenth horror movie, and, you know, it the black card thing is serious. That's a serious thing amongst Black people, but it really shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be, and I love the fact
Yeah.
that this movie kinda ties that in, that, we're just different people. We're all Black, we just happen to be different in different ways.
Yeah.
But I love it. I think it's definitely one that if you haven't seen, you should definitely check it out on Juneteenth. That's all I'm gonna say about that. That's my end rant on
Well, I
that,
think you should watch it anytime, but especially on Juneteenth. There you
especially
go.
on Juneteenth.
But any other time is perfect. So especially if you want to watch it and you haven't seen it, watch it before you listen to this episode. So, but don't wait until Juneteenth to listen to this episode.
Yeah, don't wait that long.
All right. Well, this has been a great conversation. It's been a great series of episodes to do. I've had a lot of fun. Definitely get back to it. Again, as always, I very much enjoy having you on the show, especially for these longer, more fun episodes about just a movie specific. So,
Yeah, it's been a
um,
while, so I'm glad that
yeah,
I'm able to do these with you, and this is
yeah.
my favorite time of the year. So anytime you want me to do any kind of Black movie episode, please put your girl out.
Oh, I know. That's why I got you on two of these this time. So yeah. All right. All right. Well, thank you for coming on again. I very much appreciate it. And we'll see you again next week, of course, at the beginning of every episode. And until then, stay creepy. Thanks for listening. Creepy and Geeky is produced and hosted by Robert Clark. If you like what you've heard, please consider giving the show 5 stars and a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And share the podcast on social media to help spread the word. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app or at creepyandgeeky.com. You can follow the podcast by going to creepyandgeeky.com and clicking on any of the social links. If you'd like to follow me, you can find my links at geekthulu.com. You can support the podcast by ordering teas and more on TeePublic or by donating to the coffee page. All of the links are in the show notes. Finally, don't forget, stay creepy.